time we have Cole running all the tech solo.
And the music, so much better.
Paul, we're
Yeah.
so happy you're here.
Don't screw up.
It's like, and then also, I won't make you guys come up, but Ashley and Veronica waved to everyone. They both joined us last week. And we're so happy you guys are here. Okay, you don't have to. That's okay.
I've been white since 2003. I'm so happy to be here. I love PPC. Love Kelly Mead and Green Plants. Gosh, thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Only took 7 years.
I know. And they both came from the same place, but they didn't know each other, so. Okay, let's start it off, Cole. We are still having our school supply drive for one more week, just collecting things for the Tigard Tualatin School District. And this is, again, not traditional school supplies because they have sponsorships from Office Depot for that. So this is, they need Band-Aids and clothes, like unisex clothes for like accident spills, throw ups, all that kind of stuff. So specifically the smaller sizes, like extra small, maybe some mediums, but just like t-shirts, sweatpants, sweatshirts. Oh, and then some packaged snacks to keep in like the nurse's office and stuff. But those were like the big requests. I never realized that like teachers had to buy their own Band-Aids and stuff like that. So
What school are we supporting? Do we know?
it's Tigard Tualatin
Okay.
School District.
So it's the whole district.
Yeah, it got like the foundation is like what runs their district. So yeah. But if anyone wants to collect them for other school districts or have any needs, we're happy to support any other school districts
Absolutely.
as well. They just had the most immediate needs. Okay, tomorrow we have a really good CE class. A lot of people are already registered, so please register for that if you have not yet. But it is put on by Lawyer's Title, and it's called The Art of Portland Metro Architectural Styles and Home Design. And the presenter, Tim Young, is great. He is specializes in their builder services and like development and zoning and all the laws around that. So he has a really good perspective. So I'm excited to hear him. But please RSVP because that is a Lawyer's Title registration link so that then they can issue your CE certificate easier and then have a count for lunch. And then on Thursday, Rochelle is teaching our social media roundtable. So again, that's typically just whoever brings whatever topics they want to talk about. At Mega Camp, I know we heard from a woman who got 100,000 TikTok followers in 4 months and had so much, she had been an agent for 4 months and had so much business that she didn't know what to do. So social media can be really, really beneficial as a lead generation tool. So
Used correctly.
if used correctly, and Rochelle knows all the algorithms and the tricks and the, she tells me what I do wrong sometimes.
Literally just having like a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And it's always so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always such good information.
So you don't have to sign up for that one. You just show up in this room at 11 on Thursday. And then today, after this meeting, we have our last of the series with Ramona, right? Today's last one, 4 to 4.
Yeah, of this series, the VIP.
Yes. So this series, as a reminder, Ramona, it's typically $500 for her coaching program, and she's been doing it complimentary for our agents immediately following this class for the last 3 weeks. So the topic for today is money mindset that outpaces your competition. So good. And so if you haven't come all the rest, come up. Can you still go today?
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't gone to the rest, you can still go today.
Yeah, I think, let's see, there's quite a few who've joined already. So a half a dozen or so, who've been, and you don't have to have attended the past 3 weeks to join today's class, because we're going to dive into money mindset. And this is really like, this could be like a huge class all on its own. So and it's going to be a launching point to some other things that we'll get into through the keys to success. Will be a lot about your identity, about money, which leads into the actions that you take that outpace your competition. So yeah, if you've got time, come join us. Yeah.
Actions
Love
that
it.
you take that outpace your competition. I like that.
I like that too. And that's right here, right
Right
here.
here, yeah, we're going to meet in the front.
Oh,
conference
front
room.
room. Okay,
Just, yeah, because there's a meeting right after, so, and it's gonna be some bigger conversations today, so,
cool.
yeah, so, yeah, join.
Thanks,
you.
Rena. And then Austin, Ramey, you want to talk about that? Kate, you don't have to, I can. Please
So
tell me.
Friday, KWYP is hosting just like an all KW-wide barbecue kind of the end of summer, but the goal is just to meet our peers at the market centers, and network with them, and everyone's kind of just sharing what they're doing to see success. And it's kind of like mastermind hangout time, so
Cool.
everyone's welcome. QRSVP will know food and stuff.
Cool. But if you happen to just be here, you could show because it's here and it's the KW Young Professionals. And Austin is the,
It's geared to you and I. It's
Yes.
right
Guest
to you and I.
speaker.
you can go if you're young at heart.
Yeah, no, it's open to everyone.
It is open to everyone. But more geared towards the young professionals so they can, have like a networking event. So it happens to
I'm
be here.
chaperoning.
Okay. We need some Keller Williams old professionals to chaperone.
Yeah.
Serve the food. Yeah, all those things. So, awesome. And then Josh from Academy, where are you? Josh, you want to tell us about your class? We don't have a slide, I don't think. Or do we have a slide?
Oh, for my class or for?
Tell whatever you got.
Okay, all right, sure.
Tell us about what's going on with lending, some solutions,
Well,
and your class.
We have a CD class that I sent last week.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
know if that's what you were.
That's what I was referring to, but I want to hear everything.
Oh, okay, all right. So I sent this flyer to Cole this morning, and asked them to put it up here so we could share today. Just another summary of some of the things that we offer as a company, in addition to, doing a great job at all of the regular stuff, right? Conventional FHA, VA, those types of things. We have lots of sort of out of the box solutions for your buyers. So whether it's investment, whether you've got clients that need DACA solutions, cannabis income for owners and employees, renovation, construction, got great acreage and hobby farm product. In case anybody that's popular right now, people are looking for, more space. Got a lot of great options. We do have a reverse person in-house that can help with buyers who are wanting to use a reverse mortgage to buy a house. Some medical professional loans, some jumbos with as low as 3% down. Lots of great options there. We also, in addition to our 100% financing, we have a 1% down loan program now as well, with no mortgage insurance. Student loans are also about to go back into effect for a lot of people. So if you have clients that bought a house, in the last couple of years that probably have some good equity in it, a good touch to that person might just be find out, gosh, do you have student loans that are going back into effect? Those student loans
The
can be,
payments.
the payments, those student loans can be part of a refinance without being considered a cash out. So it's still can still be considered a rate and term refinance. So it can pull those into the equity of their home, pay it off, maybe get them in with a lower payment versus whatever the student loan provider is giving them. So good option, maybe just another touch points for folks. Credit rescoring, we do that at no cost for folks for that maybe need a little bit of help just right towards the end of buying a house. They come in, their score is just a little bit lower right now. Any additional score you can get to help lower that rate any way that you can is helpful. So we're able to help with that. Speaking of rates, which I know everybody likes to talk about right now, it's a great topic. Came down a little bit today. So mortgage bonds started performing a little bit better today in the wake of a not as strong jobs report as expected. So in our world, that's actually helping a little bit. Means that things are cooling a little bit in that respect. So Friday, we're supposed to have more out on jobs numbers. And so we're expecting maybe some additional improvement So hopefully that, that'll continue to improve on our end so the rates come down a little bit. Other than that, any lending questions out there, any problems that people have run into recently that you'd like to chat about? Feel free to come see me. I'm happy to help out in any way.
Awesome.
Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, much appreciated.
All right, so Kelly is
Yes.
gonna do a little Kelly's contract corner. Remember when we were doing that every week? We haven't done it in a while, so.
Well, this one I brought up because it's kind of dire. So this is something I've been seeing on a lot of contracts lately. So can we go to the next slide here, Nicole? All right, so as you guys may or may not know, they've added a new section, which actually is a new contingency to the sale agreement. It is around the contingent source of funds. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing this box checked all the time. This sale is contingent upon buyer obtaining funds from a contingent source. The problem is the source isn't getting disclosed up here. And what I think is happening is there's a confusion that people believe that is in relation to a loan. Okay, next slide. But it's not. So buyer represents the buyer has liquid and available funds for the deposits and down payment, and if in all cash transaction, the full purchase price. And so this part here is a continuation of that first paragraph. It's not separate. It doesn't create, it's not meant to create a new contingency for a loan. It's only meant for the funds that may be required for the down payment or even deposit, hopefully not. So, okay, so that's one of the problems here, but here's the other problem. So let's go to the next one. So if this were to fail, these are the terms that cure the failure. And essentially, it's just like the financing contingency, and it runs all the way to closing. So imagine that grandma is gifting funds to the buyers. The buyers decide that they don't want to buy the house the day before closing, and they tell grandma they don't want the funds anymore. And now we are strung out all the way to closing. The funds aren't there for the down payment. Your seller's left holding the bag on their just change on the basically them changing their mind. And there's no way to police it, right? There'd be no way for you to find out what the reason was for the non-delivery of funds, especially in gift funds, right? That would be impossible to figure out. But it's also not clear, like if the way this is written, it's not clear if they just decided not to pull the money out of the market. Like let's say they were using funds from a retirement account or from investments in the stock market. If they just decided not to do them, then there's no cover for that either. The way this is written is not really, doesn't really provide your seller any kind of coverage for the whim of the buyer. So what I did was, next slide, I created a long contingency, and I have this available on a sheet that we're going to upload into the into our Google Drive. But I created this contingency that should provide you some cover. Basically, what this does, it's a long way to tie the end of this contingency period to the end of the inspection period. So this doesn't necessarily work if the source of contingent funds are like the sale of a property, but like almost every other scenario, this works pretty well. And I thought that tying it to the end of the inspection period was a pretty good like timeline for people to say, okay, hey, we're serious, let's pull the money out of the market, or let's get the money deposited from grandma, or whatever it is, whatever the commitment is. It seemed to me like the inspection period was probably the right time to do that. So does anybody have any questions about this?
Where do people, is this a whole separate document or is
Yeah,
this language they put
this
in
would be
it?
like you probably wouldn't put this into like an addendum, like just a real estate addendum.
Our
Oh,
counter-
as part of a counter offer.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be it's too long to go in a counter offer, guys, and it's long for a reason because we need all of these things in there to make sure it's enforceable. So, so yeah, I would do. I know it's a lot of paperwork, but I would do a seller's counter offer, C addendum, whatever, and then put this on there. But I will upload this amongst a couple other terms I've come up with into a form for you guys to access on our KW Drive. Okay, any questions?
That's a good tip.
Cool, it'll be uploaded by the end of the week.
Well, what we were doing, or will do is if their funds are coming from a brokerage account, basically this would be, say they have to turn them into cash by this point in time.
Yeah.
In order to perform.
Well, that's essentially what this does. It just removes the contingency altogether, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
We're
Because I
getting, we're at
think
that
turning-
time. We're
yeah.
at that time in the market where we've been high for a long time. And I know when COVID hit, I lost an $800,000 sale because they didn't pull their money out before everything closed down and the market cratered. And so they didn't have their down payment anymore. And we didn't have any language like you need to convert it to cash by the end of the home inspection period. We probably would have been okay. I don't remember the exact nuance of the transaction, but we're kind of in that world now where everything's getting a little riskier with rates going higher and higher and higher, and the stock market's going higher and higher, and some are going down. So we could have that day where the stock market drops 5 or 10 or 20% over a few days, and you could lose deals because you didn't have that language that said that those funds need to be liquidated up front, not a week before closing, so they can get the most return they can, which is what the buyers usually say.
And I'm not even sure that converting them to cash, just saying you're converting those to cash, like, I don't know if that's specific enough to change the contingency that's already been written. So that's why this is long and exhaustive, and that's why you can just copy and paste it. There's a couple of spots in here where you can change, there are a couple of spots where you can change business days, so like right here, like 2 business days, you can make that, you can change that to whatever you want it to be. But I made this super easy for you guys, just to copy, paste, make a slight change to timing if necessary, or if you have other bigger changes you want to make, talk to me about it and we'll make sure that it plays right. But please use all this language because it will cover you all the way.
Am I missing where it says that they're forfeiting their earnest money, or is that addressed in?
It's-
Well,
No, it just says it has to be waived, otherwise it would be a forfeit, right? So we don't have to say anything about it, it just says that they're moving forward. Yeah, it just says it the contingency expires, which is the de facto of the forfeit.
So
Yeah.
what happens when they sign this and then they don't take the funds out of the market and the market dives and
All you have is, well,
Yeah, the
another
case
reason
for
why,
earnest money.
right, so that's a good question. So when a buyer breaches a contract, the seller's only remedy is the liquidated funds, which are the earnest money, right? That's our only remedy. So make sure that you're getting a proper earnest money amount of all your sale contracts. Make sure it hurts for someone just to walk away on a win.
Yeah, so this is the kind of market where you would raise the amount of earnest money. If you're representing a seller, you have a $800,000 house, you would not do a deal for 5,000 right now. You would have at least 10, something painful for them to walk away from. And then in the Great Recession thereafter, I was inserting that language that if it said, funds are coming from a profit share, they're coming from a gift, the funds had to be available in a liquid account by X date, because we didn't want that problem where they had to sell them. If you've ever done enough deals, you'll find that they have their money in an account and they go to sell it and they get a notice they can't get the funds for 30 days, like 3 days before closing. So you have to get through all of that stuff early if you know you're going to have a closing.
Yeah. Whenever I'm looking at an earnest money amount, like a representing seller, looking at an earnest money amount, I think about, okay, what if the house next door, which is exactly like mine, or the one I'm selling, comes on the market for $20,000 less than we're in contract for? Like, are they gonna walk and go and buy that house? Like, you don't want that to be you don't want that to be a better deal, right? You want to keep your people locked in, so.
That's a good gut check.
and be aware of lines of credit
Because they could
shut down.
disappear. Yep, they could disappear, right? They could get called, so, yeah. I was raised in real estate to get the earnest money, however you can. Somebody asks you for a big repair, get the earnest money. Like, whatever you can do to get it to be non-refundable or released to the seller is in your client's best interest as representing a seller. Get the earnest money.
That's it. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions on this? Yeah, Veronica.
Okay, so Kelly, on the earnest money, we've always been the other place told that it's only gonna be able to be up for grabs if they have done repairs. But if they don't close, I mean.
If they breach the contract, it says in section 28.2, I believe, or 26.2, whatever it is.
That's a
28.2,
real
I can't remember. But it says that the buyer's earnest money is that the seller's damages are nearly impossible to ascertain, and therefore any breach of the contract, the seller's only remedy will be the liquidated damages, which are the earnest money amount. So if they breach the contract in any way, and I've done this, we've used this to get deals done, we've done it to try to make our sellers whole. But if someone breaches the contract, then we go for the earnest money.
Even if there was no repairs.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
even
have
though there's no
anything to
repairs.
do with repairs, unless
Yeah.
you say, like, if you have a deal where you have extensive repairs and the seller's agreeing to do them,
Mhm.
then you might say, buyers to release their earnest money, like, I'm not starting to put a new roof on, I'm not gonna, refloor the kitchen or whatever the heck I'm gonna do, unless I know that earnest money is non-refundable, right? So then you would have that non-refundable before you start all those. That's a valid thing to do today. I would be doing that today.
No, and I
Yeah.
totally agree to do that, but again, I mean, it's the police shop for
Yeah.
like 6 years.
I mean,
It's not a
From a practical standpoint, does your seller have like the wherewithal and desire to go through an earnest money dispute? And are they going to be right? Because if they're wrong, they could end up, paying the other person's legal fees. So there's some risk involved with it. But in my career, I've used earnest money on the seller side to get the buyer to actually close. Like sometimes they're wishy-washy and they're being weird. And if I have a good earnest money amount and they, they're on the fence about whether they want to move forward or not, I've used the threat of keeping the earnest money as a way to get them to close. And maybe that's the buyer's agent. What happens is usually somebody screws up. Sometimes it's the buyer's agent. A lot of times it's the buyer's agent. And you say, okay, well, we're keeping your earnest money. And that changes people's perspective a little bit.
That's right.
So,
Okay,
Yeah.
good stuff. And if you have questions,
Please
ask
call.
Kelly, right?
We'll
Or
help.
like strategy, everything. Yeah.
I'd like to add, with them putting that language in there and then with this as well, definitely if you're representing the seller, make sure you get in touch with that lender.
yeah, absolutely.
And confirm before you accept.
Yeah,
Before your seller accepts that offer.
Yeah.
Because you need to know where that money is coming from, especially if it's a gift. I
Yeah.
mean, Grandma, maybe they haven't actually talked with.
Absolutely. This is very true, right?
They could be okay with transferring that money for the inspection period.
Right,
you know.
that's the part that scares me to death is the gift funds. That's the part that makes me the most worrisome because you would have no way to ascertain the reasoning about why they don't have the gift funds anymore. Cole, can you go back to the first slide? This is the second, but this one, right there. So if you see this box checked, guys, like if you see this box checked, this should put up this should really trigger your fighting senses. Because I would be asking the seller's agent why, or the buyer's agent, why did you check that box? And because they're getting a loan, then I would just make sure that was not the box checked. I would counter and say, the sale is not contingent upon buyer receiving.
Yeah, if they're getting a second on their house to buy another house or whatever.
Right, I would want to, that'd be my very first question in reading an offer is why did you check that box? And if they did it on accident, then I would undo it immediately, because you wouldn't want just well, they said they didn't need it, and then all of a sudden they're backing out because you didn't change it in your seller's counteroffer. So the words in the contract supersede your conversation with the agent every single time. Okay, so. But then also, if they checked it and this is blank, you've accepted, you made it worse. Now you've accepted a contingency with no idea where the funds were ever gonna come from, right? So, all right. You will get in trouble for that. Like your seller's attorney will come back after you for this. So,
Thanks, Kyle. Good stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna hear from some of you guys, some of our top agents who are selling listings right now, and we're gonna talk about pricing, price conversations, how to sell your listings, all those things.
it's exciting.
I know it is
Love this.
exciting. So let's start with Pam and Laura. What you guys come up here first? Woo! Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
No.
Then, wait, make sure you're on the little screen for our Zoom friends.
And you did it.
Yes.
All
you want
right.
me to- Oh, I like this. Okay. How are you guys pricing right now? Pricing your listings?
Like this. I don't know, it's very hard right now, pricing wise, because I think sellers and to some extent agents haven't accepted where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, the comps, we can't pull comps from 6 months ago. We have to pull comps from a month ago, 2 months ago, and sellers will often say, well, my neighbor's house sold last year. Doesn't matter what your neighbor's house did last year.
Right.
So there's an education piece of it. I think we have 2 listings right now that aren't selling because of price.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to get people who aren't super motivated
Mm-hmm.
to accept the truth of where they are.
Mhm.
Conversely, we've had closings where our sellers really understood where the market was. They listened to us. They knew they had to take a haircut and they were willing to do it. So, you know,
Yeah.
anything to add.
I just saw on the Altos for Portland that 48% of houses for sale have had a
Price reduction.
reduction.
Yeah.
So how are you handling those conversations, or what's your strategy around the conversations for price reductions?
Yeah, I think, I mean, going into the listing too, when we're meeting them and talking to them at the beginning, it's, you know, like Lara said, I mean, I'm a lot of times going with actives. We can't pull the solds from even a month or two ago sometimes because things have changed that much
Mhm.
in 30, 60 days. So where we normally never, you know, price to the actives, those are like, hey, here's your competition, but I'm really looking at those and using a CMA to the actives. You know, I always tell them at the table when we're talking about the market, I mean, hey, this is what it's like to sell in a 7% interest market.
Mhm.
You know, that it's, you're not immune from what's going on. The buyers are the
Yeah.
ones that are going to dictate it. We're in this market.
I like that.
And
This
you
is
know,
what it's like.
talk
Just
to
how-
them about, yeah, I mean, I usually say, you know, these are hard conversations and I rather have these with you now than disappoint you,
Mhm.
you know, 30 days, you know, into the listing. And
Mhm.
so it really is about getting it's finite. I mean, a year ago, 2021, especially, I mean, pricing wasn't really an art. You could really price at anything.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
know that, hey, I'm going to list it Thursday. We're going to have a review
Right.
on Tuesday. We're not there. And so it's becoming, pricing is even more of an art and a strategy. It's being a student of the market, studying, you know, the best that we know of what's the market at the moment and
Mhm.
what we see, you know, happening in the future.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's matching that pace too of the market and where we're going
Mhm.
and having that conversation.
Do you think that the homes that are properly prepared, like dressed up really nice, shows really great, priced properly, do you think they're still moving at a pretty good pace? Or,
I think so. I just pulled data for just Lake Oswego for this last month of what sold, just
Mhm.
all Lake Oswego, all
Yeah.
price points. There were like 59 or 48 houses
Mhm.
that sold. And then I dumped them into Cloud CMA to see what the average list to sold was.
Mhm.
And it was 96%.
okay,
So,
Mhm.
but the homes that were sold quickly, that the homes that did get 100% or maybe even 101%,
Mhm.
they sold in less than 10 days.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So anything that went above 10 days.
Yeah.
Takes a haircut.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
there might be a few exceptions to those, but
Mhm. Sometimes when I'm looking at pricing and you're looking at like days on market, which I think is sort of fool's gold, because our days on market doesn't track the date from when the price reduction was done to the date it's sold, which I think would be a really is a really valuable metric. Because homes are saying taking 50 days to sell. Well, I don't know if that's overly accurate, because it's like, well, homes are probably taking, like you said, 10 days to sell when they're priced properly and if they're, in the right condition and whatnot.
yeah, like we had a listing that we started out at 1,069,000,
Mhm.
which was, I thought that actually we were in the ballpark
Yeah.
on that because the neighbors' houses were 1.8 and above.
Mhm.
So we're just as nice of a house and 100,000 less.
Mhm.
And we weren't getting traction. And so the sellers, after 2 weeks on the market, says, let's move it to 1,635. And we had an offer in less than 10
Yeah.
days.
I think it's taking judicious price cuts when you
Yeah.
have that opportunity. And that's the same with Gable that we listed in May that matched the comps, no shadow of the doubt. I felt really comfortable where we were at 995.
Mhm.
And it had lots of activity. And if we talk about the difference between no activity
Right.
versus lots of activity, but just wasn't meeting it, was
Mhm.
not getting it. And for feedback that I kind of knew, it was maybe one of those houses that weren't, moving, the ones that were selling
Mhm.
a year ago, 2 years ago with no problem,
Uh-huh.
that needed some updating. And we just we had a conversation of taking a pretty substantial price cut. I think it was 100,000. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To 895, because then, again, I was watching the actives and what were happening with,
Yeah.
and I toured the actives
Mhm.
and toured, again, kind of knowing where we at. And that was the recommendation we had for them. It was hard. It was a hard conversation.
Mhm.
But, when they did it and we got in front of it, we got 2 offers
Mhm.
on that. And one was below the 895 and one was at 895. And they ended
With
up
an
being
escalation clause.
right.
Oh, interesting.
So it's
Right.
like, again, if you're gonna have
Yeah.
if you're gonna have to have those conversations, price reduction, you
Yeah.
can't whittle away. It's
Right.
just gonna chase it down and down and down. And
Mhm.
you'd rather not get there in the first place.
Mhm. You just
Yeah,
brought up
but
something I find that I thought was really cool. Like you said, because you've seen the active.
I was just gonna,
Like,
you
the-
actually went. and
Can you
toured
want to
them.
talk about the
You know
value
your
of that when you're,
competition.
when you're talking to your
Important
clients?
is,
Yeah.
Again, being a true student of the market. And like now, again, when pricing is more of an art than it was, you
Yeah.
have to do that. You
Mhm.
have to not only know to speak
Mhm.
intelligently to your seller, but
Mhm.
pricing's use the comps and you also use your gut.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
broker tour is the thing, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. go out and look
You
at
sound
houses.
like you are very, very well versed in the market, right? So your clients right now are gonna believe you and what you're saying because you are, you're
Yeah,
speaking.
well, the hard thing is sometimes they
competition.
don't, and like we'll lose, I mean, listings to, I lost one a little while ago to them saying that someone said that their house was more. They also
Mhm.
charge less, but they also said, they'll charge
Mhm.
me less, and they said my house was worth more. And every time that happens, I put it on a watch
Mhm,
and I
yeah.
see sadly,
Mhm,
price reduction
mhm.
on those listings. That
Yeah.
have price reduction. And then ultimately the one that I was watching that got canceled
Mhm,
on the market on yesterday. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that I know exactly why.
mhm. Yeah.
So,
Right. And it's like you brought it up in the Facebook group that we're recreating some of these old graphics that we used to have in the listing presentations of like, there's the stairs chasing the market, and then there's the bullseye that like our man
yes,
Peter
I actually
talked.
found the graph, it's in the
You
shift.
You
So it's like
found it.
page
Okay.
160. Yeah. Love
Okay,
it.
good.
Saying, hey, 0 showings, and like 0 showings. That's never happened to me in 10 years.
Right.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
To have no showings on a
Mhm.
listing.
Mhm.
So that's a.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
that's
Well, and
another
tell everyone else,
conversation.
what the graph is. Who doesn't
Oh,
know?
so it's how to, if your listing is having either, lots of
No
showings and no
unlimited.
offers, so to like 10 showings and no offers means you're overpriced by 5% is what the book is saying. And then if you have, I think, 0 showings,
0 to no. show-
Zero,
0
yeah.
to 10 showing.
I think
Mhm.
it's.
But
well, no-
online, but you have online views.
Online views, but no
showings.
activity, like no showings at all
Mhm.
is in that book saying it's 10%
Mhm.
over
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
asking. So, and again, it's relative because it was talking about a 250, this book was written in the 80s and it was
Yeah.
talking about a $250,000
Uh-huh, right.
house and what kind of price,
Yeah.
but so it's different, but I actually shared that. I actually
Uh-huh.
took a clip of that book in the shift.
Uh-huh.
I know it's for us and it's for
Mhm.
agents and it says
Oh,
how to-
yeah, but-
how to talk to your sellers. I actually took that whole
That's great.
page and
Yeah.
sent it to them and they were like,
That is so-
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I love that. So you're using data, right?
Yeah.
to- not
Yeah,
just-
absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to get price reductions. I mean, you can't just show up and say, I think we're gonna lower the price.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And even put those sometimes in a listing agreement. If
Mhm.
you're like, hey, I'm willing to take the risk with you because we've been proved wrong. Things have
Mhm.
Yeah.
sold and gone over. And I hope that happens. But in the event it doesn't, let's talk about
Mhm.
what our price reduction strategy is to
Mhm.
get this sold and write it in the provisions.
I like that.
Okay, give an example of what that would sound like. Or look like.
So I think we had, gosh, I'm trying to think of what listing was it? Meadowbrook or I forget which listing it was, but we did put in, if after 30 days, we don't come to, mutual acceptance on offer, seller agrees to reduce the purchase price to this amount.
That's great.
Mhm.
And I think that was it. I kind of did it after the
Mhm.
30-day mark.
Yeah.
But I guess I wouldn't be,
Love
Yeah,
that.
and
go
I
from
think
there,
that the other thing is like, we have to prove that we're doing everything we can to get their house sold. So we've made sure it
Right.
presents well. We've made sure that it's getting exposure. And
Yeah.
we're doing all of those things. And it's, all the things we
Mhm.
told our sellers that we were gonna do, because we're such good agents, we're gonna market your house
Yeah.
really effectively. If we've done that, and then there's no activity, the only explanation is price.
Mhm.
But if we're falling down on our part of the job, which is
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
make sure the house presents well and is getting exposure,
Mhm.
then maybe they have an argument that, no, it's on you guys,
Yeah.
but.
I can't tell you how, in my experience, how important it is to stay in front of that. To like when you have your marketing plan and it's like a to-do list and you're checking it off and getting it done because the seller has it and they're gonna hold you to it. And you're right, you're gonna go ask for a price reduction. They're gonna say, well, my flyer box was empty. Right? It's ridiculous, but they want to complain about something. They want to hold on to the hope that they're going to sell for the right price. And if you've not fulfilled your promise to them, they're gonna remind you of it. And you're not going to get the price reduction. They're going to blame you.
Mhm. All right. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, you guys
for
are awesome.
sharing.
Thank you
Fun
very
stuff.
much.
Okay, next up, let's have Peter and Alex come up.
Oh, cool.
So we're gonna talk, I know,
This is a
we have a
big
good.
deal.
Mhm.
For you, I can't find it.
Oh. And
That bullseye one. You have it?
Sure, yeah.
If you
Mhm.
can find it, could you send it to Cole?
Yeah.
He'll throw
Oh,
it.
to put up there. So you guys are like masters at CMAs and running all the numbers and really doing a good job on the front end of presenting the data. Tell everyone about that and what your strategy is.
Well, first, I'd like to share the answer to your question is, or one of the things I would say when you were talking about price reductions and talking to clients. My favorite quote in this market is the only way to stop a ball from rolling downhill is to get in front of it. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have to be significant. But anyway, I would, Kelly talked about days on market, and I would disagree in one aspect. If you go in and look at the history, you can't tell when the price was reduced. But when you're looking at trying to get your best price in the current market, the real value, I use all of it, cumulative days on market, and you have to actually go into the history and find those cumulative days, and you can watch it, but you can, and then I will show our clients what they started at, no matter how many times I reduced it, how long it took to get there, as an example. And if you look at the active listings and you go into that detail about days on market, and how long it took, and the price reductions and the total price reductions. You do it right now in that column. I highlight the price reductions in red for some reason. There's a whole lot of red on those charts.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely right that it is an art. But there are things to do that. You look at the Altos report and see the percentage of homes that have price reductions by, not blank, they break it down into 4 categories by price. So you can find where your home fits and look on the number of homes with price reductions. 30 to 35%, believe it or not, is normal. So anything above that, if you're in a market and the active homes on the market, or they've had 80% of them have price reductions, the ball's rolling really fast downhill. That kind of stuff.
So Pam and Laura said that they are using the active listings more, and you kind of mentioned that with the days on market. When you're pulling CMAs, how far are you going back? How far back are you going?
If it's in a subdivision or, Tigard or whatever, maximum of 3 months, 2 months if there's enough of them. And, when the market was going up, solds and pendings are critical. Actives are more critical now, as well as pendings. And you need to do the same analysis to understand where they started, how long it took them to go pending, what the price reduction was to get there. And then, the reverse of that is, so you've got a client and they want to be in Arizona in October. And so, okay, well, here's the ones that sold in 10 days, which is what you need to do to meet your goal. And so the rest of them don't count. And they're typically lower. I use all of those things in my process, and I do take the Altos report with me. That's part of our listing presentation, is price reduction. Is a number of homes with price reduction by market segment. And I don't show them the whole thing, but if they're over $1 million or acreage or whatever, and then of course, if you're an acreage property right now, you can count on 90 days plus. And we looked at acreage on the east side, there's about 24 months of inventory right now.
Wow.
So, you need to look at all of those things, but the devil's in the, what is it, detail, devil's in the details, whatever that saying is, that's becomes more important. And even if you have a client that is not into numbers, you can show them pictures, and it becomes very clear what's going on in their market. And RMLS is great, and Case-Shiller is great. I haven't used Case-Shiller since Altos came out, because Case-Shiller's 2 to 3 months behind. Altos is weekly or monthly at the very worst case, and those things are critical. And then when it comes hard, I just have Alex talk to them.
Alex, what do you do if somebody wants to list higher than it's?
I'm a lot more, if anybody knows Peter, he knows that he's very high D. I'm 10 times higher D than Peter. I'm just impatient, and I will push probably harder than I think a lot of people are comfortable with on a seller. And I will use the awkward silence to just honestly, to make them feel like they're making a wrong decision. And I'll ask the question, look, we came here with the idea that thinking you were ready to sell, list the home and sell it. That's the goal, right? Down chop, right? Yes, okay, well then, list, as we've discussed and is evident in all of this material, listing it at 600 is only going to accomplish a high day on market, and we're going to end up chasing the market down. That's not what I hear you wanting. Right?
That's
I'm
good.
awkward.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
you
Right.
wait for it. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't say no to that.
Right.
And then, yeah, but okay, well then let's price it the right way. We go in though, knowing what they're hoping for. We ask every seller before we show up what they're expecting the home to sell for. And it's very useful because we know ahead of time if we're going to have a problem. And,
Will you explain that pre-listing
yeah,
process?
yeah. So a day or two before we meet, I'll go through what I call a seller pre-qual sheet, and I'll ask them, where are you going? Why are you moving? Do you have a realtor on that side, or should I be planning on connecting you to a great realtor? Tell me about the house, bed, space, square footage, your build. Have you done any updates to the home since you bought it? How long have you been there? Is there an in-ground pool? We'd like to know about that. Assess the home's condition. Do you have a mortgage on the house? Approximately what's owed? How much are you guys thinking about? Like, what would you like to get out of it? And if they won't tell me how much they want to list for, and I have the mortgage, then I'll just ask the back doorway of how much you're hoping to walk away with after it sells. Sometimes people catch on to that, but generally speaking, everybody tells me what they're hoping to get out of it. And I ask, are they meeting with anyone else? It's like 75% of the listing appointments we go on are competitive. So.
And when Alex is done with that, he hands me, I get that information, and then I can, and I'm not cheating but I can look at the comps in such a way that I know how to present to help them understand where their home sits in the market. And so when we used to work back in the day with Mike Hassan, when he was still with us, was one of the greatest listing agents on the planet. And I always said his presentation was he would talk until they gave in and said, where do I sign? Just be quiet.
And now you do that.
I do that with Jada. What can I do? So thank you, Mike. But without what Alex does and is able to get out of him up front, our success ratio would not be anywhere near what it is, because we go in knowing what we're up against.
It builds a lot of rapport through that conversation, and it takes about 10-15 minutes. And we walk in with there's a relationship there.
Yeah.
If it's not someone that we've met already. So.
Peter, I know you have an Excel spreadsheet for like everything, but like, how long do you spend preparing for, like, it's a simple one in a neighborhood, a home in a subdivision,
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
just pouring through the comps.
Yeah. And we use Cloud CMA, and if we can find pictures of the home when it was listed the last time, plus what Alex has gotten out of them about the current condition and all of that, I can try and I present them all, but some of them will have the corners turned down in the page because of the ones that I know are most critical. And so we do a statistical presentation, if you will, first. These are what the numbers say. This is what the market is doing. Here's the days on market. Here's the number of price reductions. Here's what, based on square footage, your home is worth. Right, that's part one. Now, part two is you and I are going to sit down and go through these comps, look at the pictures, and like you to tell me which ones you think are most comparable. We get occasionally stories like, oh, that's Bob and Sue's house, and down there, oh God, their backyard is so much nicer than ours, or whatever it is. And then I've had people come to their own conclusion about price reduction. They go, well, yeah, we were thinking this, but I think we got to be down here. Yeah,
Mhm.
but that's because I think we know as much as anybody can know between Alex and I going in what we're up against.
Right.
Yeah.
And you never say, I think you should list that. What do you say?
Well, I said, I've never given a price to anybody. I've told them what the market says the price will
You
be.
typically,
I love
typically give a range.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of agents do this differently. We have found success in pricing on quarter century marks. So we don't typically list at 549, 999 or
Mhm.
888 or 900,
good-
whatever. It's
good signs behind
550, 525. One in our pitch to sellers on that is if someone's looking between around 500, they might be looking from 475 to 525. They're not looking from 474, 300 to
Mhm.
524, 999. Right,
Mhm.
so at 500 or 525, we're gonna catch the brackets going from to it and then down to it. We're gonna double, triple, potentially quadruple the exposure
Mhm.
via the RMLS.
Online.
It's, not to pick on Pam, but it priced at $995. The question would become, if it was priced at $1 million, would somebody who was looking between $1 million and $1.5 million find that to be the best value that they have seen in their home search? Haven't seen the house, don't know what I'm talking
Yeah, yeah.
about, but just as an example, so
Yeah.
that's why. And then the other side of that is the sellers think we're pretty smart
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
because
You
of
can't argue all
That
that
look-
data.
that. Well, I'm talking about just that
Oh,
pricing, because we'll say,
Well,
you're looking for a house, how
it-
did you search?
it helps
Mhm.
if we're talking about 525 to 550, here's your range. And we're also talking about price reductions and high days on market and more inventory and high interest rates. And we say, what do you guys think? Should we go in at 550 or do you think 525 makes more sense based on the market conditions?
ooh,
It's-
that's good.
yeah.
Putting it back on.
It makes it a little bit easier to get on the
Mhm.
lower end of the range.
Do you think this is a true statement that in this market, you have to be the best priced home of all the actives?
I think it would be one of the best values.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So condition,
Mhm.
location, price.
But when we were starting with all of this, the thought that kept rattling around in my empty brain was the only reason a house doesn't sell, the only reason is price.
Mhm.
That's it. Now, condition and location all go into the price, but if your home isn't selling, and by the way, it's probably your flyer. If you just had that, if you just have
Different-
that
a
other
different
picture. I tried to warn you, Laura. I said it was.
Fireplace in the wall.
That was it. If
You've actually had that, yeah.
The Red Hawks off the patio.
Yeah.
You don't have your pictures of the Red Hawks.
Uh-huh.
we are in that market now, which most of you haven't ever experienced, where you're gonna get those comments.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, if you just, that picture, remember that picture I sent you, the sunset? Where we could see the mountain that one day out of 365. Why didn't you use that? Because that would have brought the buyers, and that's where we're getting to. So price is it, but it's, marketing, condition, and price. And you guys' suggestion on marketing and the check sheets and all of that is we have that in our brochure that we hand out, that basically this is what we do. And if somebody says, well, what's going on and why don't we have anything? Well, we've done everything,
Mhm.
and except for down to price.
You introduced me to the value of bringing the social media price estimates. So you're still doing that?
Yeah,
right?
we'll go in. The presentation includes Zillow, Realtor, and Redfin prices,
Almost values.
values, home values. Because I guarantee you, they've looked at them. And if Zillow says it's 700 and the comps say it's 500, you better know the 700 number when you're going in, or
Yeah.
you're gonna get blindsided.
Yeah.
By it. And so we try and look at everything a buyer would have access to, so that we understand that and are ready to handle those objections when we go in.
Excellent, you guys. Round of
Can I ask
applause.
one more
We-
question?
Well, we have, one last question for that.
How do you introduce the Altos reports when you bring them up in a listing presentation?
We actually put them, I have a sequence of slides that includes the current Altos reports that I just snap out and drop into the presentation and we go through them. And it's, first we go to Altos and then, I can't remember which direction, and then we do the social media, Zillow and all of that, but it's all part of the presentation. And, price reductions is all I really care about with Altos, but also show them inventory and some of the, and depending on sometimes the dollar per square foot values that they're getting, and you can look through those reports by segment and find the thing that is going to be most advantageous to achieve our goal for our sellers. And they have to understand clearly that what you're doing is for their benefit, not so we can get a commission.
That's,
Oh, I love
that's
that.
really
Build
important.
value.
That's a good.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Cool.
Oh, question from Veronica.
Okay, it's like you said, you're going up against so much competition, and when that conversation comes up about commission and reduction, do you have a soundbite?
Oh, Peter has such a good soundbite on this.
I do.
Yeah.
You knew you would, Pete.
Well, they ask what we charge and the answer is 6%. And they go, well, so-and-so is this. And so then I break it down. I also have on the spreadsheet, the BAC that are being offered by all the competition, which typically is minimally 2.5%. So I take our 6, I take off the 2.5%, and I say, so buyer's agent's getting 2.5%. And you probably agree that all they do is bring the buyer to the house and open the door, right? And go, so we should get at least the same amount. They go, because we do all the work. And I said, well, that's 2.5%. And we have 1% left. That's for marketing. That's what's going to allow us to make sure that we get the top dollar in the market for your home. And pushback is seldom. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think we've taken, there are no standards, right? We're not violating antitrust. I think we've taken 5% listing here today.
It's important to share that though, because you guys hold your value. You're worth it, and you're
Well,
confident.
there's
about
also
that.
2 of us,
Yeah.
which,
So you're each like
There is
50% of the value.
well, it also, there's 2 mouths to feed, right? So it's harder on us when we have to come off of our,
Yeah, that makes
when
sense.
our.
Yeah.
But I don't care about any of that. I just care about the seller. This is all for the sellers. Our
I like
commission
your-
is for.
I like your other answer about.
I was gonna
the
say-
question they should be asking.
Yes, that's what you
Explain
taught me
that.
when I was.
That one actually I use.
Yes.
Remind me what I'm saying.
The
The question
question
you should be asking is,
how much?
How much
are
you get net?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
You taught it to all of us. You literally taught it to all of us, probably.
I did. Alex confuses me sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
But it's.
I appreciate you asking. We listed 6%, here's why, but I think the question that you really need to be asking is, how much am I gonna net from the sale? And as you can see, based on what we do, you're gonna net more money than if you listed with someone who potentially does it at a lower rate and does less.
They're gonna,
or the question.
gonna give you a
should be
round of applause
asking
on that one.
is, who is gonna net you the most money?
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. Good stuff. Jenny and Austin. We have so many good agents too.
I mean, so many good agents.
So many good agents.
Yeah.
Hi guys, Jenny and Austin. So I want to ask you guys about expectations and just what you do to lay the groundwork for expectations with your sellers.
So first, I want to preface this by saying that when I first got licensed, I sat outside Peter Alex's office for the first 9 months. So a lot of what we use is what they use.
That is literally
great.
the exact experience. I had a Word document that was like notes from Peter.
Notes from
And I
Peter.
just like had so many notes.
So setting expectations. Well, we always talk about the 3 things that sell homes are price, condition, and exposure. And I call that the trifecta. So like I think it's always been important to me, but even more so now to like do everything we can to position the house from the get-go. So cleaning, staging, and then price. And that like that's the lever, right? If the condition is dialed, we market, we feel like we market pretty well. And then if the results aren't there, then it's the price.
Mhm.
And we talk about that at the listing appointment.
So tell us more about that cleaning and staging. Do you do that for every listing?
Yes, we do.
And do you pay for that or how does that? how do you-
We pay for the cleaning, and we contribute a certain dollar amount for the staging, and then, yeah. Cool.
And because you want to be able to say that condition is
Right,
top notch.
yeah.
I'm so fond of your farm. And so talk about your advantage, yeah, talk about your advantages, you know, knowing the neighborhood so well that you bring to your listing agreement and to your listing presentation.
Yeah, so we just recently, Alex and I had a transaction, a listing on a street in Villebois, and had that same conversation with the sellers. Like, we talk a lot about clarity over certainty. We talk
Ooh,
about
wait, speak to that.
so there is no certainty in real estate, right? But we can get really clear on where we are right now and what got us to this point.
Mhm.
So we start by talking about, like, you know, what has put us in this position with low inventory.
Mhm.
It started back when the market crashed in 2008, and housing starts basically stopped, like they weren't building new homes. And then so we've had low inventory ever since then. And then in 2020, when we all went into quarantine, at the same time, interest rates dropped and the buyer pool doubled,
Mhm.
tripled, quadrupled, and no homes were selling while we were in quarantine. Well, then once things loosened up, it was like a pressure valve went off, right? In July of 2020, we had a great couple of months. It was awesome. And then ever since then, we've had like this shortage of homes. And we all kept saying the only thing that's going to change this is if the interest rates change. And then they did. and so just painting that's like the Cliff Notes version, right? So that they can understand, because most people don't have a clear understanding of what got us to this point.
I love that. How you
Yeah.
go back and explain the state of the
Yeah,
market.
so that's the clarity piece. And the certainty piece, like, we have no certainty, right? We don't know what's gonna happen next month.
Mhm.
We can conjecture like what's gonna happen, but clarity versus certainty is also really important in leadership. Anyway, so
True.
I lost my train of thought now. Oh, so in terms of setting expectations
Mhm.
around that, like, just helping them understand what got us to this point. What is the most recent activity? Comps are the same in our farm. It's
Mhm.
like we look back 2 months, 2 to 3 months, if there's enough, unless there's not enough homes to compare. But in
It's
our
probably
farm,
cool. Like,
so
well, I sold this one and I sold that one.
It
It's
is
probably kind of brings a lot of credibility to the.
yeah. So anyway, so we had this listing on Geneva Loop, had this conversation with the sellers. We're past clients. We'd actually helped them sell their other home in Villebois and buy that one, and priced it competitively. And Alex brought us a beautiful offer that was over list price and met all of they needed to be in the house through September because they were moving out of state. It was perfect. Literally 2 days after ours closed, the same floor plan across the street
Mhm.
went up at the same closing price. And we had in the office, we're like, oh, why did they do that? You know, we talk with our sellers about creating a auction mentality versus a bargain mentality.
Yeah.
So by pricing competitively, like conservatively, the buyers feel like they're winning if they pay more.
Mhm.
Whereas if you start high, you create an auction or a bargain mentality where
Mhm.
they feel like they're winning if they pay less.
I don't think Oregon buyers have
That
ever
is
been really good.
good.
Portland buyers have never really responded to that. Like, I remember having clients saying, well, how come someone just doesn't make an offer? It's just like, well, because people are nice in Portland. They just assume that you're not going to
He's gonna
accept
say
it.
no.
Yeah, they're just going to say no. Like, it's
Yeah.
an interesting phenomenon here.
Yeah, so that listing, did it ever go? Was it? Well, it went pending, then it came back on
The lower price.
and then they reduced the price. So we listed at 635, closed at 650. They listed at 650, and I think they've recently reduced down to 625.
Mm.
I had a call.
That's like right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
A good example.
And I had a call from an agent at Berkshire Hathaway who lives in the neighborhood as well. And he called me and he's like, hey, I have a Strasbourg floor plan coming up, and I just wanted to, get a feel for, like, what do you think? I saw yours on Geneva Loop, and I was like, here's what we did. And I told him, and I said that auction versus bargain,
Mhm.
he listed at 634 and change, because people do that. And it's already
It's
pending.
pending.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think
Yeah.
that's one other thing that a lot of folks don't do is they don't call all the pending transactions to just to get a better idea.
Yeah.
Because right now, I feel like everything's different. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we're putting on a new
Right.
roof, or we're giving $20,000 towards closing costs or buy down the rate.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think understanding the nuances between the different pending listings helps you put together a better CMA as well.
That's a really good point.
That's so good. You guys, so many good little nuggets here.
Yeah, well, and the same, because they're still building in Villebois, so in similar terms, it's like some of our comps are new construction, right? If the builder's offering 5% towards closing costs,
Yeah.
then you have to be willing to, you have to coach your sellers to be open to doing that too.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, you guys, well, round of applause for Jenny and Austin.
Wait, I have-
Austin, you want to add one more
Austin
thing?
has a ton, like, yeah,
Let's add
Go.
one more.
Yeah.
One more word of wisdom from Austin. Tell us something about listings and pricing and expectations.
I think just like having those conversations up front are the most pivotal, and like the bargain versus auction mentality, the idea of this is what the data says. I'm not here to tell you what I think your house is worth. You can kind of come to that conclusion yourself. Like they were saying, like we never give a specific price. Sometimes we'll give a range if they can't come to that themselves. And just knowing that like if you list at the bottom of the range, you're probably gonna get multiple offers the first weekend. If you list at the top of the range, we might be having a different conversation in 2 weeks, depending on the activity. So I think just letting them know what different outcomes they could have based on the decision they make usually leads them to make a reasonable one.
Are most of your listing appointments competitive?
No, not in the neighborhood specifically.
You guys have just dominated, right?
Another advantage of having the farm.
speaking
Yeah.
to that, like getting really clear on people's motivation, like talking
Mhm.
about that at least 3 times. To understand, because that's what the leverage you're gonna use to say, well, if we do this, then here's the negative outcome, here are the consequences. And if we do this, then your dream is here.
Right.
And it's tangible.
Because otherwise you're just talking, you're making assumptions of those things and you can't
Right.
actually make a connection to what they need. Yeah.
Well, and then for price reductions, we haven't had to do a ton of that, thankfully, but I remember I had a listing on Bull Mountain in 2019 that Dwight, like, I learned how to leverage the data for because Dwight we did like a series of 3 $25,000 price reductions in like 3 months. And every time I'd come to Dwight and be like, okay, help me put this together. And I let the data tell the story. I didn't have to be a bad guy. And at the end of it, the sellers were like, well, we're sure gonna miss those Starbucks coffee days where we lost $25,000. But it was very affectionate.
Yeah.
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 So
I do, that's funny. Bull Mountain I find to be like one of the most difficult areas
Ugh.
for so much inventory. It's really hard to price. I would have found anyways.
Yeah.
How
That's
about
awesome.
conversations for price reductions? Like what are your scripts?
we haven't had to practice that much yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can see just by the activity, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting a lot of showings, but no offers, if you're getting no showings, like kind of speaks for itself in that sense. And then kind of like, I think they're saying like, do you want it to become a stale listing over time, or do you want to get ahead of the ball rolling and, do what we're here for?
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. I think, just saying these are as we discussed, you remember when we met, we talked about the 3 things that are going to sell your home. And we dialed these in, like, is there anything else that we could do to improve the condition of your home? Or do you feel like we have, and this is why like having that all dialed so like perfectly from launch, like your marketing plan and the condition. Because then they know the only conversation left is price. So, I mean, I think we've had to do one. Well, I had one this spring that had been listed by another agent that we had to reduce by like $75,000. But then the client was like, yes, let's do it. I'm so tired of this. So, but yeah, I think it doesn't have to be complicated.
Are you guys using the sheet that shows the Keller Williams listing service when you do your listings? Do you use that sheet that shows all the search engines
Syndications.
that they push out the data?
Mm-mm,
You don't use that? Oh,
no.
I'll tell you about that at lunch.
Okay.
You guys, round of applause for you guys. Thank you.
One aha. I have one aha. The one thing I've noticed about each of these 3 groups that came up is they're all extremely well prepared. They spend a lot of time preparing themselves and their clients for the market. And 2, they're like communicating that information to their clients really well. And I think that's like the basis of your success once you get a listing. Once you guys get that, once that phone rings and you're getting an appointment, I think that's what is making you guys successful. My own humble opinion, but that's what I've noticed, the commonality between all three of you guys, so, all three groups.
I just need to add in some awkward silence and I think I'll be done.
You'll be good to go.
Hi.
You'll be good to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, guys. And everyone have a great Labor Day weekend. Still come to stuff
Oh.
this week, but reminder, the office will be closed on Monday.
Can I
and-
say one thing?
Yeah, we're.
I know we're going over a bit.
I know.
We've got a lot of people here.
Yeah, that's good.
I just wanted to say, especially for Pam and Laura, maybe, when I went to the Hassan Company, I had the privilege when I was in my twenties of sitting in the cubicle. It was the only cubicle available outside of Mike's office.
Me too.
You did too? And so one thing I learned was how he reduced his prices in a difficult market, because that was the early 80s. And I had conversations, I listened to him talking to his clients about lowering the prices. And one distinct thing he did was when he targeted a house to lower the price, he called them twice a week. And I was like, well, how do you call him? Like, what would you say? And he would say, here, more days have gone by and no one has gone through your home, or we had one showing and it doesn't fit them. So we've got to lower the price. And that was one lesson I learned about. If I got really serious about lowering a price, you call the people twice a week, not once,
Mhm.
like a month.
Yeah.
Stay on them. He stayed on them until they lowered the price.
They give up.
They would give up. Yeah, I mean, he would talk in terms of, well, it's been 4 days and we haven't had another showing. And the market is slipping away. We need to make a change right now, or the price reduction we're talking about won't have any effect. And then he would wait 3 days or 4 days and call him and have the same conversation.
One thing we kind of left out is throw in the market seasonality. You can,
Oh.
you can track that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not a good time to be overpriced.
No,
yeah,
no.
You're gonna be overpriced until April or May.
yeah. We didn't have the Altos reports back then, so it was more just using the data of the MLS like a lot
You
of
just
people
look
do.
at track pending sales or by month on RMLS or closed sales. And show them that it peaks in May, and we're downhill now until next February.
Right.
How long do you want to own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would always give them a low range and a high range, and he would always, if it didn't sell in the first month or less in a tough market, he was shooting for his low range. We tried it higher, nothing's happening, we haven't had any good feedback, no one's going through, whatever it is. Let's get down to the price point that I shared with you. That was probably what it would take. And he'd get it down to that price, and then they'd negotiate from there.
Real life example, had a client insisted we listed $1.8 million. Told him it was worth $1.5 million. 264 days later, we finally got it under contract at $1 million.
Wow. That's a good example.
Which is lucky because it's now worth $1.3 million.
All right.
All right, you guys.
Now
have
you
a
can
great
end the
week.
meeting.
Now we can end it. That was good tidbits. Isn't it amazing how many things everyone has learned?